Boom! Longhorns, Steve Sarkisian, Bo Davis. They are striking on all cylinders right now. I tell you, the Pistons are firing. Brandon Brown, a young man out of Ogali, Florida, a defensive lineman that some people feel may be the best interior defensive lineman in the country when the new rankings come out. He's not well known across the entire industry. But I tell you what, CJ, Texas goes to Ogali, Florida, and picks up a commitment from someone that literally all you have to do is watch the film here. He is a phenomenal, phenomenal prospect. He is the third 2025 commitment of the recruiting campaign. The Longhorns are just on an absolute roll. You've watched the film. You've talked with this guy. Brandon Brown is just a freak player and just quite the pickup for the Longhorns this early in the recruiting campaign.
No, you mentioned it 100%. I mean, the film, it doesn't take more than just a handful of plays. I mean, we talked about it right before we went live, Bobby. My jaw dropped. It's incredible film. I mean, for an interior defensive lineman, it's rare to see so much, vertical push into the backfield. He's doing it every play, and he's throwing multiple players every single play. I love the film. And to think there's another year of development ahead of him, incredible. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he could be in that conversation for being the top interior defensive lineman. And like you said, everything right now for Texas recruiting is going up. 2024, 2025, the portal. They're moving on all cylinders, and it's exciting. It's a great time for Texas recruiting.
Yeah, you look at Brandon Brown, and the thing that I recall, Jerry Hamilton, a good friend of mine, said that he thought he might be the best defensive lineman in the country when he went through there and saw him in the spring or in the fall. Bo Davis went down there twice, I believe, to go look at Brandon Brown as well. Brandon Brown has scholarship offers from Florida, Miami, Michigan, Tennessee, you name it. So regardless of what star ranking he is or was, at the time of this, the Longhorns certainly coveted him to absolutely no end. Brandon Brown committing to the University of Texas earlier today, just a phenomenal, phenomenal prospect. Look, we talk about this, but we talk about firing on all cylinders. This is the third commitment from the class of 2025, and they're all out of state right now. It's kind of mind-boggling. You have a quarterback from the Mobile area and KJ Lacey out of Saraland. You have a tight end from Calhoun County, Georgia. And then you have a defensive tackle out of Melbourne, Florida area in Ogali. Look, those are all places where Texas has not done a lot of recruiting before Steve Sarkisian came. This is a direct impact of the SEC presence that Texas hopes to have.
No, without a question of a doubt. I mean, going into SEC country and signing three of what will be, some of the top prospects in that entire territory is impressive. And to do that before the calendar even flips to their year is even more impressive. And on the topic of Brandon Brown, and Emory Winston kind of falls into this category as well, just doing the early evaluations, getting that early relationship going and earning the trust of not only the kid, but the family to say, I want to go to Texas, when really – it should be the Florida schools that are all over this kid. This kid is a guy that, back in the day, had he left Texas fans would have been blowing up message boards, Twitters, Instagram. Somebody would have been called to have been fired. Instead, we're celebrating a commitment. And that's, credit to Bo Davis. And I think we're seeing recruits become more, acknowledging of the job that Bo Davis has done, similar to what recruits and running backs are saying about Tashard Choice and the job that he's done with Bijan, Roschon, and Jahmyr Gibbs. We're seeing that now with Keandre Coburn, Moro Ojimo, Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, who I see a lot of Byron Murphy and Brandon Brown. And I think that projects very well for the future. Talk about that bulldog mentality in the trenches. Again, just turn on the film. It doesn't take a whole lot to see why Texas took, Brandon Brown this early. And again, I think it's a tremendous prospect.
And don't forget, he is going to be one of the most highly recruited players in the country. So you will be seeing this. He's not, even though he's committed, you can bet the Floridas, the Miamis, the Michigans, the Alabamas, the whoever's, Ohio States and USC's, they're not going to stop recruiting him, nor should they. But the Longhorns and Bo Davis clearly excited about this one because there's just no doubt how good a prospect he is. And again, it starts Texas on this cat. It's just getting to be a different category of recruitment. We've talked about this, CJ, how Texas has been a kind of a slow burn where Steve Sarkisian's been playing catch up to other teams in the region. And now he's actually ahead of the game. You know what I mean? He's ahead of A&M. He's ahead of LSU. He's ahead of Oklahoma, right? And it's taking root. And now he has longer term relationships with players, not only in the state, but in the Southeast region than some of these other coaches. And so I feel like, it's just one thing after another. I mentioned those other two recruits, KJ Lacey and Amari Winston, because I feel like this is the start of something that could, continue to crescendo here in the next couple of weeks. You've mentioned once before that Texas has a big junior day coming up on January 20th. Some of the names that we expect to be there, give people a sense for 4 or 5 of the top players in the class of 2025 from the state of Texas that might be at that junior day as well.
I think you have to start at the top, and current LSU commit to Corian Moore. I mean, I think everybody that follows Texas recruiting is aware of his recruitment at the moment. From Duncanville, the best receiver in the 2025 class. There's been arguments that he could even be, in that top 5 conversation for receivers, regardless of classification. Currently committed to LSU, is currently, on roster at Duncanville with 2 Texas commits right now. And future signees, Alex January and Colin Simmons. He's very well aware of the Texas offense, Steve Sarkisian, and the Texas program. He's the number 1 guy atop the list. And then I want to go down to Galveston, Jonah Williams, just the talented, versatile hybrid linebacker safety. Texas wants him as a linebacker, 5-star caliber player. I'm very much, following his recruitment and seeing just how well Texas can get infiltrated there. And then, Bobby, I know the importance of the trenches going into the SEC. 2 offensive linemen, Michael Fasusi and Lamont Rogers. They've been to Texas plenty of times before. They're both very big fans of Kyle Flood and his development of offensive linemen there. Those 2 guys I'm watching out for closely, and I expect to be there on January 20th. And finally, Devin Sanchez. He's gone kind of quietly under the radar for Texas. I know Ohio State has a lot of momentum. Oklahoma's been in the mix as well. I'm not sure if there's a decision coming. I would expect a caliber of his player to kind of see that recruitment expand out towards into that 2024 calendar year. If he makes it to Texas, that's going to be one to watch very closely because, again, Texas recruited defensive backs very well recently, and he can continue that mold and obviously see the success on the field this season.
A couple of the guys, Riley Pettijohn out of McKinney, the same high school, by the way, as Xavier Silsami, who just flipped his commitment to Texas in the 2024 class. He's a linebacker. Then you have a bunch of other out-of-state guys that I didn't even mention. Jabori Antoine out of Westgate, same high school as Derek Williams. He's knocking it down to a top 8 here soon. You have Jordan Davison, maybe the top running back in the country, out of Mater Dei in Santa Ana, California, where Texas just picked up not only Spencer Sandin last year, but now Brandon Baker this year. Look, there are a plethora of guys we didn't even mention. Zion Williams out of Lufkin is another one. A young man in the spring area, the defensive lineman down there is another one that Texas could be in on. There's just so many guys right now that it's hard to start winnowing or narrowing the list. But suffice to say that young man Brandon Brown will be at the top of that list because he is just so darn good. And that's really what it comes down to. Texas reaching into O'Galley, Florida, Melbourne, right on the east side of the state there. It's just a big, big pickup for the Longhorns. Hopefully this is a long and interesting recruiting year for the Longhorns ahead for 2025. But I tell you what, it's off to a freaking firecracker of a start right now.
Great start.
Is best way I could put it. All right, that'll do it for today. That's going to be a quick one. Congratulations to Brandon Brown. For CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. And for you, Brandon Brown, hook 'em.